Hello, everyone. I am Brad Chester, the tallest, youngest man with the most flowing locks in the game of 40K. And I'm with some folk down here, over there. Introduce yourself, everyone. We even got a special guest.
I'm Brian Horton, the oldest judge in 40K.
I'm Matt Aaron. I paint stuff.
I mean, you're not wrong, sir. You're not wrong.
Keep it humble. Keep it humble.
So you gotta be much more specific. This is Matt Aaron, the winner of the 2022 ITC Hobby Track, and one of, if not the best painter in 40K, even though he'll never admit to it.
Look, man, don't ruin our
Yet he
title
does
of
have
how to
his
win the hobby track.
demons, which we'll definitely talk about in this one. All right, so let's get it right off the bat. This is me to Matt. Matt, what's the one hobby prize that has eluded you?
Oh my god.
God. Man, I can't believe I beat you in painting at Du Bois.
You had to go there.
Beat him in painting.
You had to kick a guy right in the groin. First question.
Might as well.
Now, to be fair,
Oh,
I've tied for first place at this event, but lost on a dice roll.
This is
I've
true.
gotten second at this event, and I've also gotten fourth at this event. And we'll talk about that event because if you stack that about all the other events I won last year, but still, it's my unicorn, man. It's my I will never catch it. I keep putting more and more into this army. It keeps winning Adepticon, Nova, Chicago,
If you would have
GW.
brought that display board that you brought to LVO to Du Bois, you would have won. That was the one thing that kept you that like 2 points differential was the display board. And when we told you that, you were like, "Don't worry, I got this." And then a month later, you show up, or well, a month and a half later, you show up at LVO and go, "Bam!" And we all go, "Well, Matt's winning everything for a while."
that was pretty badass when you decided that. I'm just going to go.
Yeah,
I'm going
I mean, you kind of need it when you go to LVO and you have phenomenal armies and people are there just to win best painted. You really have to pull out all the stops. So I did.
So what's it take? Like about 2 weeks to get one of these armies done? Like if you're going to do your new project? I love I can't even stop laughing when I said that. So we've had this talk. We talked about it before. What is your level of just getting something on the board? Like, do you have like, because of the fact that you're known to have like really pretty stuff, do you not want to tabletop a new army? Like, what's your feelings about that? I mean, say for instance, you're an excellent hobbyist like myself, and you may or may not jump to whatever you feel is going to be the best that weekend and or any weekend. I have obviously a different view that you have about this planning and stuff.
I just think it's kind of what your goals are and what you set up. You know, if you decide, hey, I want to go for best painted or go best for all, you got to put the effort and energy into it. If you're going to be, going for best general, there's no way you can have a killer army and also keep up with the constant change that is the meta. You're just not going to be able to do it unless your full-time job is doing that. I have 3 jobs and somehow able to sneak up the things I do. It just takes me a long time. Like for my Death Guard army, it's taken 3 years to reach this point because it's the devil's in the details. You can get it, maybe a couple months, get a table, an army built, put on a tabletop, playing it 3-color minimum, but that's not going to win you best painted. With best painted is you're going to spend as much time almost converting the army and then putting a theme to the army as you are painting and putting all the details in. That's what kind of separates a lot of people. And yet, I think my army is kind of a great kind of example of how you can put something on a tabletop really well in a couple months and then go back and add details and then go back and add details, go back and add details. And that's why I tell everyone, this army was not painted in a day. You really have to just build and put the effort and time into it. And you want to get it on the table. You want to be able to play with it. You want to have fun with your models, of course. And so get them on the table, but then go back next weekend and, paint some belts, go back next weekend, paint some eyes. So as you're constantly improving your foxhole, as we say in the army, and as long as you're constantly improving, a little bit here, it'll add up. And to Horton's point, Du Bois, you see the same armies kind of every year, but you see them kind of get elevated every year, and it's pretty exciting because you're kind of pushing each other in a really collaborative way, which I'm really part of and really proud to be part of that community.
I like it that I like what you said like a lot on that is that get it usable, but like never stop doing what you're doing to get it up. Because Brandon was just saying, well, KR was like, he goes, I can't tabletop an army unless it's really close to being done, period. And Brandon's like, I keep trying to get best overall, but I miss it by 1 to 5 points. But that 1 to 5 points might be what you're saying, though, which is that, you know, yes, it was second, third, whatever it was, you know, but now I've, you know, put some more bells and whistles on. I made that. I did this.
Yeah. One of the things I've always said to people when they ask me, I was like, don't be done painting. Don't say, okay, that model's done. You might go back and like just spend 10 minutes, rotate it, look at it in your hand and go, oh, I missed a chord here. I missed a little this here. Or, man, you know what? I could highlight that better. I could get that edge a little bit tighter. I could get the rivets to pop a little bit more. And just taking the steps to go back and just add those little things, because Matt and I have talked about this, I would say ad nauseum at points
Love it.
I was like, man, yeah, I really like that. But man, you know, your glow effect here just doesn't match here because you got better at glow effect when you got to this model. And then he goes back and fixes those other models. And you see that culmination pretty much over the course of all season. And just at the end where it was like from Motor City Mayhem to LVO, your army evolved so much, and every little thing got a little bit better. Every little edge got a little bit crisper, and that's a big thing. And I know from Matt's point, because I know what a lot of the products he uses. Sometimes just having the right brush, the right, you know, paints and everything else makes that world of difference to you. Like Matt, what's your favorite paint brushes?
I'd say I kind of evolved to Winsor Newton. That kind of be my workhorse. And I'll either use a Winsor Newton, 3 for a lot of things. Surprisingly, it's a pretty big brush. I like it because there's a big flute. That's when you have a paintbrush, how much paint it could hold. I like it because you don't have to constantly go back. And you want the really clean tip. So for my style, I've kind of evolved. I have tons and tons of brushes. I tend to always go back to Winsor Newton to be probably about, 80% of the work I do, minus like dry brushes and things like that. But I tend to like that, but those are expensive, and you actually got to do the right maintenance for a brush to keep it going too. So again, you can have a paintbrush and destroy it with one session if you don't treat it right, or you can paint every day. If you do the proper cleaning, it can last you 6 months. So just depending on if you're doing the proper maintenance.
And you're using the Series 7 brushes, I assume, right?
Love them. Never leave home without them. Great stocking stuffers too. For like good friends, again, it's like at the perfect price point to be a stocking stuffer or a little something. And the thing is, once you get a Winsor Newton as a gift, like you realize, like I feel like you're like He-Man holding the sword. You're like, I have the power. Then you go back and you crush it, and you realize, wait, this is just a tool. Just like anything I have in my hobby room, like all those are just tools, but it's the effort and energy you kind of put into it is really really important part too, because you got to practice and practice and practice. Just like Brad has 1 billion years, because he's been playing Warhammer since the dinosaurs were around. 1 billion games of practice. That's why he's so amazing at what he does. But that's also what comes to painting. You don't have to be a phenomenal painter, overnight. Just got to practice, and get good at it. And a lot of it too, and I think it's the kind of, maybe it's the New York community that we create. There's a lot of great painters, and when you go to events, you're just sharing ideas. And for me, that's where it's at too. So I know it's a little bit of a tangent to the original question, but like, what brushes do you use? What paints do you use? You see someone achieve an effect that you're pulling off. Hey, what paint do you use? Or, oh, I actually use a specific brush and this is why. So brushes are all based on the user and what works best for them. And, also paints. Some people like different viscosities of certain paints or the pigmentation of certain paints. I can tell you right now what paints never to get, and then also what's worth it a little bit more. It'll actually go a long way. GW paints actually, surprisingly, like carry a lot of bang for their buck. And Vallejo too carry a lot of great bang for the buck. I'm getting more into pro acrylic because they're highly pigmented. My army's super bright, but I'm playing around with those a little bit more too. So again, I talk about paintbrushes too, but just they're a tool, just like paints are a tool, and you got to find the tools that work with you. So try things out.
That's like with me, one of the things that I've learned now with being at an art store, I have some access to some stuff and luckily vendors are really nice to give us samples on occasion. But I found Holbein acrylics, which I've never, ever, ever in many years of painting gone, man, I really like this white paint. I've tried Vallejo, GW, you name a paint company that's made a hobby paint, and I've tried it. And then this Holbein, which is a Japanese company, they're artist grade quality white paint. And I was like, oh, I'm never using anything else ever again. I have to put it on my wet palette. I have to thin it down, but like one little drip of it goes so.
I got two questions for you guys. One's from the wall here. Matt's like, do you guys use soap on the brushes after every major session?
I will use soap on my brushes sometimes in between colors. Depends on which colors I'm using. Like reds are really heavily pigmented. If the next thing I'm going to is not in that wheelhouse, or, like when I'm laying down my layers, I sometimes clean in between sessions or switch brushes. It's a depend, but almost every night at the end of the night, I wash my brushes with brush soap.
Matt?
Yeah, I think it's how much of a mess I make, for lack of a better word. So what I mean by that is if you're using metallic paints, always clean the brush, because the flakes will, if you go for metallic paint, messing around, and then you go ahead and try other paints, the flakes will be in there. So always use a little bit of soap, not a lot. Don't go heavy, just a little bit of soap just to clean it off. But if I get a lot, I talked about that flute earlier, if I get a lot of paint in there, if I let it go, even if I wash it out, the paint will still be in there. And then what happens, when it dries, it'll fray your bristles. So if you get a lot of paint into the flute, don't just dip your whole brush in there. Just take what you need. Don't go all the way to the end. Then unless I fill it up, then I can kind of just get by with some water.
Yeah. So
because I'll rotate.
So I'm going to pull a pen up because I don't have a brush really handy. So what he's talking about is you've got the ferrule, which we'll do as the blue part of the pen here, the large blue part. That's the metal part on your brush that holds. The flute would be in here before you get to the tip of the brush.
The tip, yes.
Yeah.
Just the tip.
Always keep it clean. Always keep it clean.
And the big thing I tell everybody is when you're using your brush, you should be using up about halfway up the ferrule.
Mm-hmm.
Never get it into the back of the ferrule, because if you get it back here, it starts getting up into here, which forces everything to fray. And when you store your brushes, after you wash them, you should be leaving them flat on the table or hanging like this. If you store them like this, the water gets down into the ferrule. As it gets down into the ferrule, it breaks down the glue, which causes it to fray.
You guys are just making up words right now. I have a question from Chad Bester, longtime watcher. What's the hardest color to paint? Like right now, you decide you're going to do something. What's like the bane of your existence in colors? Like it's just going to be hard the entire time.
White, like Eldar, that's all white. Such a pain. Such a pain, because if you mess up a little bit, normally you can go back and cover it up or something. You can't hide with white. White is it's white or it's not. And also getting it the right color, you got to have like a dark white to a medium, or you're doing cool white to warm white. Yellow is also pretty tricky, and so is red. But something about white is just like I get one shot at this. And a lot of people start painting white with just base white, and that's the mistake. You got to start with like a little bit, either again cooler. When I say cooler, I mean the blues. Or you start a little bit warmer with maybe more of like browns, and then you work your way up. So white is really, really tricky unless you know what you're doing.
And for me, it used to be yellow, and then Games Workshop came out with Imperial Fist contrast paint and changed the game on that. But I will agree with Matt that white is probably now the hardest one to get consistently correct.
Mm-hmm.
Always prime in pink before laying down yellow. Gives it a warm depth. Is there pink primer? That sounds cool.
Yeah. Army Painter makes them, and so does Steinrelez from Badger.
I do have a paintbrush, and I have a paint palette, courtesy of Army Painter. I painted one model. KR has that model at his house, and I painted it with Sean Naden and his wife, and it is literally over there. That's the model. Paint palette and the brush are in the corner, and they are covered in dust currently because I haven't been back there at all. And I got so demoralized that I haven't even pretended that I could do it. But
so, Brad, I think what we should do is at some point we should really just teach you the slap chop method.
I don't know what that means. Painting.
It's
Like, everybody's
way
going to be kung fu fighting. Like, what does that mean?
Yes, pretty much. So what a slap chop
Get
is,
ready.
you start
Get ready for this.
with a dark primer, then you go with a mid-tone of a dry brush, and then a very light, typically white dry brush to get just the edges, and then you go over it with contrast paint, and that'll give you a nice shading of your majority of your color on a model. So if you were painting an ultramarine, you'd be 3/4 done in about 5 minutes.
The problem is I have to choose colors I can see. Here's my painting issues. I can't see half the spectrum, and my hands shake from my sketchy lifestyle in the beginning of my life.
We could still get you to do slap chop to where you got it to where you would be fine with putting it on a table and saying you painted it.
I mean, that's a very low bar. I mean, I'd like to have I appreciate pretty stuff. You know what I actually appreciate more, and I'm going to get into this a little bit because some people aren't super into it as I am. Because I can't see colors as much, I really, really like conversions. That's what really drew me to when I first started going to GTs, in 2000. That's with no other numbers.
BC.
Yeah.
That's 2000 BC for those of you watching at home.
I was sitting around, I was looking at the Egyptian methods, while we were sitting in the pyramids in the Valley of the Kings. But I really enjoy
whittling the models out of sandstone.
Well, it's one of the things that I liked about fantasy that they used to see more in that than you did in 40K is the sheer number of fully converted armies, because they also had laxer rules for counts as. We're much stricter about that in 40K. What are your guys' opinions on that? And should conversions be required for paint? Extra points, and also what a two-parter, part deuce. What are your thoughts on counts as armies?
So, as someone who's judged painting a lot and has done a lot of paint judging overall, I've come around a long way. Like, I started out in the old school with Chris Courtney and all of Du Bois and a lot of the Adepticon guys of conversions should be a huge chunk of it, and wrap that in, add it as part of your painting. I actually would love to start doing a 2-part painting rubric to where someone was like best painted, best hobbied army, where it's the two
I like
parts.
that a lot, actually.
For those people who don't like to do conversion work, myself, I like to do conversion work, but I'm kind of a minimalist when it comes to conversions, because a lot of the models, I really just like the models. For people who are just fantastic painters, I want to see them do amazing and do that. But they lose out on rubrics sometimes because 20, 25 points can be conversions. So they get a 75 and their army is amazing. You're like, why didn't they make the finals? And you go, well, they didn't do any conversions. And then they go, oh, that sucks. And it's like, yeah. And then you got somebody like Matt, who every model is converted. There's not one in the army that doesn't have conversion work that is phenomenal. And the amount of time and effort, you don't even notice some of the conversions because you're just like, oh, well, that's a model. You're like, no, that's an Imperial Guardsman with a descended belly and intestines hanging off it. And if you look, that's an arm off this kit. That's an arm off a Plague Bearer kit. That foot's off this kit. And you go, holy crap, he just, on a 7-point model, he just spent $20 and, 10 hours of conversion work. So it's stuff that has to be appreciated.
I'll be very clear. I don't start off thinking this is going to take me 20 hours per model. I just have an idea, and I run with that idea. And eventually I get so far that I'm just like, oh no, what have I done? Now I have to continue on with this. But for me, it's just kind of, maybe I'm going to answer Brad's question a little bit as I kind of give it a little bit more, is that I really want a theme. I think that's what really stands out, that everyone's seen a Space Marine army. Everyone's seen, a Tau army, but what makes your army stand out? So I think having a theme can be really helpful. For example, someone ran, I think it was an orc army, but then they put skink heads on it and it had to be like Jurassic Park, which I thought was a great idea, So again, I think the theme can kind of drive a lot of conversions. So maybe just have something that you want your army to be about. If you're really into the fluff and lore, okay, what's my army going to be? And then you don't have to go crazy with it, but having a theme will make things jump out. If your whole army has a theme, that will send a bigger message than individual conversions here and there. So try to have a theme with your army when you're kind of conversions. You can keep the conversions minimal, But if you have a unique theme, that will actually sell it a lot, because some people just really like the kits, or some people don't have the time to convert, and that's totally fine. But really have fun with it, make the army yours, what you want it, how you want it. If you have a theme, it can definitely go a long way. Unfortunately, for like painting and rubrics, again, I've not had the pleasure of like judging just yet, but I'll probably get into that, you know, in the future. You really need three things. You need conversions. You just need them, because that's the only thing that's going to separate people. You got an amazing execution of painting and a display board. Again, I'm not saying they all have to be weighed equally, but in terms of separating, you know, everyone from like the top tier. Now, most people, you can get by with just a tray and then throw some GW train on it. You know, maybe just like spray paint the ground, you know, green or something like that. Like, you can get away with that, counts. So you don't have to go wild and crazy. Like, my display board was going to the nines because I took it personal. Personal.
I feel
it hurt me my soul.
Not right into the soul. Yeah. This one.
Right, got me right there, right there.
Now, remember, I did not judge the painting this year at Du Bois. I had the other guys do it.
Now, I say this kind of jokingly, because I know Brian and Du Bois is kind of my like hometown one, even though it's about 5-6 hours away. That for me, it kind of fueled me to kind of get in there. I didn't take it as a spiteful thing. I was like, okay, what do I got to do to get better? A lot of times people will, you know, not get what they expected to get, either on a paint score or not place first, and they'll get really sore about it. And I think my kind of just philosophy has probably carried me a long way. I don't get sore about it. I'm more like, hey, what do I need to get better? I'm like, you got to do this, and next. I'm like, great. And I go out and execute, and I come back. And somehow I'm coming back, but doing worse at Du Bois. And I don't take that as me getting worse, because if you go there, it's probably next to LVO, probably most competitive hobby events you'll have, you know, in the country. So maybe because we're stuck indoors here in the north, you know, it's really cold here. Who knows? But you have some phenomenal artists here. So that's what kind of drives us, is constantly pushing each other. So I can go to Adepticon and be really lucky to win first, or go to Nova again, be really lucky. Some amazingly talented artists, but I think my conversions put me over a lot of time. But then there's some people come out that have amazing conversions and have amazing, you know, painted army and execution. I'm like, all right, well, now it's close. Well, now my display board is the thing that carried me. So you got to really have all three elements to do all three. And yet, if you're maybe someone called Brad Chester and wanted to maybe get best overall, because you know you're going to do, you know, pretty well in generalship wise. Well, what can I do? Just show up with the display board. Doesn't have to be like too crazy. You can have just something classic. I miss that with some block.
I do
something little. You can just take beer cans and like glue them together, and then put something on top of that, and that's kind of funny, you know. You can be creative with it. I think I would give creativity points as long as you're.
We used to have that though, like, but it's also where I'll go really controversial, and I mean that's when we had comp and everything else with it. But like you used to have to. You got flat 5 points or whatever for having, you had to have your army list with your little story. You had your thing. We've talked about this before, but I do miss a little bit of that, because it made everybody at least go through the bare minimum of, even myself with my bad painted stuff. I went through the motions of board, you know, extra little things with it, just to chalk off those points. You know what I mean? To give myself a better score. And
I agree with that, because as we've progressed, I mean, like, don't get me wrong, I enjoy the best generalship of tournament play, but I've grown to appreciate much more over the last 10 years the overall side of things. And for a while there, from in the 7th edition era, everything started focusing on just winning best general, winning the ITC, being the best in that. And somewhere in that time period, painting rubrics and everything else became, oh, just get it to 3-color standard minimum to meet tournament standards and get it on there. They don't judge painting. And now that Hobby Track exists and things are starting to come back around where people are including overall, and overall typically for a lot of the bigger events is starting to get to the point where the prize for that is equal to, if not better, than the generalship, because sponsors like to promote the overall hobby. So you end up getting some more swag that way.
Gonna get me ranting again on that. I still think, as somebody that basically plays straight up for best generals and stuff, give me my my axe, my trophy, my plaque, my whatever, it's so much harder to win an overall than it is to win a best general. It's just takes so much more time, so much more effort. You know what I mean? And you should be getting the lion's share. And I'm going to sideways that with the fact that TOs give more prizes to the middle and the lower than you're giving to the top. High five the people that win. The people want to feel that they're involved in the community. You gotta also, if you don't give shit to everybody else, your award ceremonies suck, because if everybody knows that they're not getting an award, they leave. They go home. They have to drive. They have to catch a flight. They have to do whatever. If you know there's even the chance of getting a lot of shit, especially the biggest. I mean, help do it to Du Bois. You guys give 2 of your biggest awards out at the end, and they have nothing to do with what you placed. You know what I mean? We have the raffle, and then we have the random giveaway stuff.
Or last place.
I've said this, and I will continue to say this. My 2 favorite awards to give out are the person who played Smoking Boots, or Wooden Spoon, some people call it, where they played every game, they came in last place, including last place with Hobby, but they stuck around. They deserve something for coming out, even if it's, a starter set for AOS when they played 40K. Just something, because we do that frequently because it's kind of a funny joke to us, and everyone gets a good laugh out of it. But I love giving Average Joe. I've talked about that repeatedly. It was started by Beef and Wing. I got to give that group a lot of credit for starting that. Where the guy who finishes dead, the guy or gal who finishes dead in the middle of the pack, with Hobby, with everything, and is the Average Joe. They are the most average of the average. They get a prize, which I love. And I like what Frontline started this year, where they're doing the best in faction little pins. I really like that. I actually want to do that best in faction overall, is what I'll be doing at my events this year.
Just giving people the notice, the attention that they are appreciated for being part of the community, and the effort they put in to be whatever they did. You know what I mean? Is a big deal on that. So I think that's why I think it's weird. And I've said this before, I know I'm saying it again, but it was a big deal for the longest time, for the first, 10, 15-ish years of playing 40K. The overall was the big deal. And it was accepted that was the big prize. They read all the prizes, best general, and then you had overall. The overall person couldn't even win best general, you know what I mean? Because it was 1 per. But that was the big award forever. And then out of nowhere, and it could be part of the Ard Boys and other stuff with it, which is they just kind of went, okay, well, we don't care anymore. And I don't know what happened there. I also kind of hate the fact that it's called Hobby Track. That annoys me, that it's not overall or even the appearance hobbyist.
I don't. As someone who won the Hobby Track, what would you be more apt to see it called?
I think that's a good question. Well, I think it is what it is. It's the Hobby Track, so it's hobby. You can't say painting because there's conversions, which are more converting. So I think hobby incorporates, all the different aspects of the hobby that are not generalship. But I think Brad brought up a good point. There should be 3 tracks. There should be your best general, best hobbyist, and then the combination of the 2. So that's where you have, no offense, but Sean Nade's going to win that every year, or TJ, or Andrew Gaudio. So players like that, and there's only a handful of them that are essentially going to go there, crush you with a beautifully painted RV. And so I think there should be something like that, where you reward those who are on the competitive edge, because you have to then fringe and kind of do it that way, or you're going to go for purely hobby, or you're trying to go for both. And going for both is exceptionally hard, because you have to be able to kind of stay pace with things. There's no way you can paint to that high level and keep up. So you have to have kind of an army already on, stored away, and then be able to kind of make subtle updates to it in order to kind of keep up with it. So it's tough to kind of, if you lean to one of those 3, you're kind of pulling away from the others. So you kind of have to commit to.
One of the things I always say about people who are exceptional hobbyists and Hobby Track, we'll just use that because that's the term. People, they typically stick to one faction and just keep adding units to that faction to go, and then they'll go back and pick, like you've said previously, pick up a model from, you know, the last iteration of the army, update it, clean it up, do something else with it and bring it in, because the meta changes and it's tough to, pardon me, to keep up with that. And someone like Brad, who has a different army every other weekend, who may change armies as frequently as he does underwear. It's tough to do that because you have to, you know, to do a hobby track and be overall and continually jump the meta. It's really, really difficult. But to become I'll use somebody like Sean Naden as an example. Sean for years played Eldar, but he became a master at playing it. Even when they weren't the best army to play, he understood the army so well, and combined that with his hobby abilities, he was able to pull out some amazing stuff and win a lot of events that caught people off guard because he was just so good with that faction. And I think that's something that you'll notice, that a lot of the hobby track guys get really good at their faction and know what their factions do hands down remarkably well.
Absolutely.
Ready? I'm going to go into this because a couple people ask, especially my bro, Eloise. She basically goes, how do you win? You know, what events give out points and basically what goes into it. Now, I'm going to pull up a crazy person sent me his manifesto and also a drawing that he did. He's clearly insane, so you'll have to humor me. He just got out of prison just recently. So, but I have a ITC Hobby Track scoring picture, which I've just made the entire screen because, well, that's what I do. So walk me through this.
So this is a finger painting, kind of my best way of giving 30 seconds of kind of how to orient people to, hey, how do you get hobby points? I get this question all the time. And it actually took me a while because it's not really posted anywhere, just generalities of, oh, you got to do well, you got to go to big events. Well, that's kind of the formula, but it's not the whole formula. So walking you through, you'll see you have on one axis, you have the hobby track points. Very similar kind of, point scale when it comes to best general, typically, 100 for a 100-person event, and you got 200, we'll get you a little bit, close to 200 points. So that's kind of what this picture is kind of showing you, is that it goes up pretty quickly. 100 people, enough rounds, you get 100 points if you get first overall. You have 200 people, it's actually going to be a little bit less. And so you'll see that it starts to taper off at a certain point. This is the people that throws people for a loop, because they think if I go ahead and win Nova, which has close to 300 people, well, I'm going to get like 300 points. And so it's going to put me way over. Now, Frontline Gaming has done a lot of great work in terms of figuring out, whoa. Well, if we have this formula, if it's direct proportions, then whoever wins LVO is going to win best overall. And they kept kind of realizing that. So they said, okay, let's pull back. Let's make this formula. Let's get some, doctoral level mathematicians in here to kind of figure out what's a great way of starting tapering off at a certain point. So if you'll see here, we had 2 recent events this year, and you'll see at the bottom, it kind of has the axis of players and rounds. So if you have, for the Rocky Mountain Open that we just had, you had 145 people. First place for best painted got 219 points. All right. So about 150 people got about 220 points. All right. Now, if you look at the Cherokee Open, which had 257, so it's about 110 more people, winning best painted got you 233 points. So even though you had 100 more people go, over 100 more people go, it only went up about 14 extra points. So you're starting to see it tapers off at a certain point. So therefore, you can't just run away with it if you won 2 or 3 really big events. So that's what you kind of have to look at, because it's the difference between these events is that you really have to go to big events. I'm saying events that are 2, if not 3 days, that are typically more than 6 rounds. So you want to go to your, GW Opens that are 3 days. You want to go to your Nova, which is over 3 days. Now, Adepticon is technically over 2 days, even though it's 4 rounds one day and then 3 or 4 rounds the second day.
4 rounds the next, man. It's rough. It's a.
Sorry, I've never been, Brad.
No, seriously,
okay? I've been a long more doubles. All right.
They're pretty badass about that. You play 2 days straight of 4-4.
It's brutal. Everyone's played 4. Oh, by the way, Brad, to answer your question, I've painted 1,800 points of orcs in 6 hours the day before Adepticon.
Yes.
Using slap chop method. We did it last year. I show up, I got myself like 6 hours to paint, make sure everything's really tight. A guy shows up with, it's all assembled and all primed, about 200 points painted, but with literally 1,800 points of orcs unpainted at 5 o'clock the night before Adepticon last year. So we did slap chop before it was cool. Did dry brush everything, took paint and diluted them down, applied everything, add some metals. It wasn't the prettiest orc army, but that's the thing about orcs. You can get away with some rough edges.
We used to call it glazing models back in the day, where you would do the pre-shading, but it's called slap chop.
Is that what you do with shrinky dinks and you put them in the oven and you just let them go?
That's a method.
I got a question for both of you real quick. I want to go back to this and go the specifics, but like in the chat goes a lot of people are saying this, and I hear this quite a bit, which is a ton of tournaments don't submit their Hobby Track scores. I guess it's like a multi-part amongst my weaponry in the Inquisition is. Why? And what can we do to fix this? Because I think it's crazy to me that you're not getting this scored. It's as much of a part of the hobby. I mean, it is the hobby, you know what I mean? But it's much a part of the game as anything else is. Why? I don't understand why it's not. I literally don't have an answer for this at all. I just don't know why.
As a TO, I can answer this. First off, the TO has to, before the event, request a token from Frontline for Hobby Track for their event. And then when they submit their token, they have to do 2 different things. They have to submit an ITC token, and then they submit a Hobby Track token. A lot of times people didn't realize that it's 2 different tokens. Even though you have a hobby score in there where you submit it to ITC, it ignores that when doing ITC rankings. It will only take that Hobby Track thing when you put it in as Hobby Track. Also, you have to make sure that in BCP, you have the line of what you're scoring called Hobby Track. Because if you call it painting, anything else, it will not get submitted into Hobby Track. We found that out with the first ACO because I put it in as painting when I set up BCP because I didn't know. And it went in and they were like, yeah, that didn't submit for Hobby Track. And many, many people messaged me and go, why am I not getting a hobby score? And I went, I don't know, I put it in.
How is this getting fixed though? Like this seems like the dumbest shit ever to not be able to put your scores in. I just don't get it.
Honestly, BCP put out a fantastic video for all the TOs on how to do everything for all the ranked stuff. And all you have to do is spend 2 minutes and watch the video. And it's literally like a 2-minute long video, walks you through step by step what you need to do. And once you basically learn how to do it, it's stupid easy. But the problem is that in some ways, not every person that runs an event takes the time to learn all those steps to make that event even better. And if you're someone going to their event and go, hey, why aren't you submitting the hobby scores? You can tell them, well, if you just look at the BCP website and look at their YouTube videos on how to, it'll show you what to do. And you'd be surprised that a judge will probably go, or a tournament organizer will probably go, oh, yeah, we can do that for you. And then that starts it out. It's one of the things that you have to do. I mean, and don't get me wrong, there's times where BCP is not perfect. There's times where the Hobby Track was not perfect. Matt and I have had many conversations about this, where it's like we've submitted I've had this with a couple of things where I've submitted a result a dozen times, and it's like it just kept getting kicked by BCP because they had a back end problem on their thing, and it took forever for us to get it fixed. But once they got it fixed, it's been fantastic since then.
I just think that if I'm mad and if I basically psych up and I'm like, I am now, Matt has inspired me, Brian has inspired me, I am now Paint Master Brad, and I start going and somehow my Hobby Track results just don't get reported at big tournaments, I would just be fucking in fuego. I would be so mad.
There's definitely been times where it's like a big event happens. I've ran some of them where whatever the reason being is, the track score just doesn't come in right. Or, hey, guess what? You submitted it. That's great. Everyone got the same score. And you're like, well, I have my app open, and no, not everybody has the same score.
Can we fix that in the app? Is it?
So it's now been addressed in the app, but there was a point last summer where it was an issue, and it took, to BCP's credit, it was an issue that really hadn't got discovered until people started caring about Hobby Track. Matt,
how did that take so fucking long though? Like seriously, like how? There's a lot of you guys that are only in it for the hobby. I just don't get how that doesn't get put in. I don't know. Literally, right now, if you had the top players like in generalship, and they just started not getting their scores, or everyone in the tournament got the same score as them, there would be 40K nerd bombs going off everywhere. People losing their minds.
What's the old saying? The greasy wheel gets greased first.
But there's
a squeaky wheel. So you really have to. Well, I think a lot of effort kind of came out from actually. I mean, we're dropping his name a lot because he's awesome. Sean Day put out last year. He's like, I'm not going to any event ever again unless they confirm to me that they're putting in a hobby score. And of course, there might be some hiccups on the back end entering the score. We talked about, how they're trying to streamline. It's a little bit of a growing pain, but they're working through it. But I would check in with the event. Hey, event X, are you actually going to be inputting hobby score? Oh no, what is that? Someone may just not know if it's a local RTT or something like that. Well, let them know, because you're putting all this time and effort, not you, Brad. Everyone else is putting all this time and effort into building and painting their models. And then showing up with them. So get some, you want to get some credit, hey, how did I do painting wise? How do I get better? Asking for feedback, or how do I do against my buddies? Yeah. Some sort of recognition of achievement for just showing up, because it takes a lot. The barrier just to put an army on the table, 3-color minimum now, when back in the day you didn't need to be 3-color minimum, I think is pretty high. So give them some point. And I think that kind of brings me back to maybe rubrics a little bit. I don't mean to sidestep, but ITC and LVO, they changed their rubric. At first, I forecasted some problems. LVO happened, those problems came to light. And so I'm not a fan of aspects of it, but I think LVO was faced with 900 people. How do I quickly make a rubric that gets you down to fighting weight, gives you some sportsmen some credit for just showing up with a painted army, and then we'll have the second cut to kind of separate from the men from the boys. So I think the first idea, the first phase of it, worked out pretty well. If you show up 3-color minimum, you're going to get points. You're going to get something. But I think they really faltered on the second side of it, and then they have this mystery round later on. So some people got heated because the idea with this new rubric in LVO was to remove any sort of ambiguity of what your score was. Everyone knew who would be placing what based on this very categorized rubric. Well, the thing is when you have 100 people max your rubric, you have 100 people go into this secret closed door meeting of who's deciding who's the top 10. And then you have Duncan Rhodes pick, the order of the top 10. Some people's feelings were hurt by that. And I can completely understand by it. So I do appreciate Frontline Gaming being faced with this massive challenge. And it's the first time they've implemented it, but I don't think they're too far off. I do like the fact that they're giving points for people showing up with the paint army. I mean, showing up to one spot with their army in one piece sometimes is a small miracle, because things break or getting things done in time. So just getting there, you should get some points. But I think in terms of separating, it can be a little bit more granular.
So this is where I'm going to ask as someone who's run large events, judged large events, what if we said if you wanted to go for best painting on Thursday night, please show up between, we'll say, 9 p.m. and midnight for paint judging, where you come, there's a couple paint judges sitting there, you present your army to them, you get your feedback, you get your initial score. Would that be something that you would want to see happen at events where you get a window in which to come get your army judged? And
I
you
like
have
the window, just find the right time.
Present.
Because some people just travel the morning of there. So maybe the morning of the first day, but I know that's headache central for anyone who's running a tournament. You're trying to get everything kicked off, so that might not be the best time. Maybe day 2. I think you guys have done that in the past. Hey, day 2 in the morning, go ahead and everyone set up the army who wants to be paint judged. So that way, people who show up late their first day, you can still go out drinking, that first night, and then the second day you show up, set up your army, you're good to go. Then you have the lunch break to go back and say, hey, where are these top ones we really want to separate between? So maybe that's an idea. I do like the idea of everyone kind of being checked in with, some recognition. I try to say that for everyone who I meet. What's something cool I like about their army, or something that really surprised me, or something I know they put a little bit of effort? Because you can have some phenomenal, like really, energized people who really love the hobby, but maybe can't execute that well for X, Y, or Z reason. Maybe there's physical limitations, talent out of practice, but they really want to do well. So find something in there that I think you can really kind of pop, or you show that they put some sort of effort into their army. And I think people gravitate toward that a lot more. They really appreciate that you've seen that, and you're kind of cultivating that a little bit. And again, it doesn't have to be like an amazing thing. It could be something like really funny. It could be like a bunch of, I don't know, Gretchen inside of a vehicle, or a bunch of Gretchen behind somewhere drinking a beer. I don't know, some small stuff. But there's a lot of different ways you can kind of create and make this game, make this hobby yours, in addition to just the general side of it, to kind of maybe put some of those things. Because for me, again, everyone's different. Some people are chasing the competitive edge really closely. That falls a lot of army turnover. But if you're going to go and put some time into actually building an army, put a little bit more effort, the next weekend, slowly build it up, and then make that army yours, because then you're a little bit more proud to play it. You're a little bit more proud to show it off. So own that a little
I've
bit.
always said, and I will stick to my guns on this one, a painted army that you've put personal effort into it plays better.
I feel like I'm being attacked here.
Well, I've just always said that, like I play, I don't want to say B tier armies a lot, because I've played NIDS when they were good, but for years I've played subpar armies, but I've done very, very well with them because A, I know the army inside and out, and B, I just put a lot of time and effort into it. People are like, oh man, you roll an exorbitant amount of 5s and 6s. And I'm like, that's because I love my army and I play it with passion. And I think it comes through on the dice. And people always laugh at me and think that's silly. And then they've seen me play and go, all right, maybe there's something to it. And I'm like, I promise you, there's nothing magical about these dice. I've had people like grab my dice, go, it's got to be your dice, roll my dice and do absolutely crappy with it. And I'm like, it's because you don't believe.
Yeah, but almost played something that was not in the top S tier once, and then I didn't.
I've been playing Death Guard the past 3 years, so I've been playing on hard mode with the army, and then also bringing some more pretty stuff. So it hasn't been the most optimal, but still for me, but I have fun then, and for me that's fun. And also realizing, I'm sure Brad and Brian realizes that armies come in cycles, So if your army's not doing so great right now, just wait till it comes back around.
Wait it out, baby. Wait it out.
Just wait out. Don't throw it away. Don't throw it on eBay. I always tell everyone, put that army under your mattress, really deep down, because then maybe a year or two it's gonna be really good, and you're gonna want that army back. So definitely don't throw away your army just yet.
That's like a lot of the Space Wolf players right now who are going, oh man, if I'd only kept, and I'm like, why did you get rid of it? Well, it hasn't been good for so long. And I'm like, but it's so amazing now.
You know what I want? I'm so sad because my Space Wolf army, it's my first Loyalist army 20 years ago. I don't know what the hell. I played Chaos, then Eldar, then kept playing Eldar, but Space Wolves are somewhere in between there. I've got an entire Space Wolf army done with ruins on every single base, but they're all the wrong size base. And it makes me sad.
They make base.
Yeah, except for they cover the ruins.
Not if you get the correct ones. They have ones that just wrap around the outside that don't cover over the top.
Because I'd love to run some. I missed it. I really enjoyed playing. But that's the thing, guys. Everyone is. I really think that you're talking about really loving your armies. I only bounce to things that I enjoy. You know what I mean? I don't play armies. I play a lot of top armies, 100%. I'm driving the bandwagon, but I only get randomly play stuff that I really like. And I think that really goes with your guys in painting though, is you just enjoy your army and it becomes yours because you spend so much time and effort on it. You know what I mean? So it gives you a little more juice. When you're playing on the table, you have a little bit more fun because it's your project.
Wait. You're saying that you're blowing my mind here. You're saying if I really like my army and I roll up and I meet Brian and he really likes his army, we play this game together with little models and we have a good time, that that we can enjoy ourselves.
That's crazy.
Absolutely.
Like,
Absolutely.
wait, I could lose this game and still have fun. Whoa, time out. Maybe
we could possibly drink some.
There, Brad.
Yeah,
we could possibly drink some Macallan 12 and have a good time at the same time.
I always ask my opponent. I'm like, hey, I'm going here for best painted, so I'm not going to give you much of a fight. And can I drink while we play? That's kind of like my standard spiel, and I tend to have some great games because no matter what, win or lose, this had a great experience with my opponent. You kind of win. Again, I know that sounds a little like soapboxy. You know,
hey, that's like literally what I built my whole thing on is have fun. If you, again, I'm going to go back to my standard speech of anytime you're mad about something in 40K, you have to ask yourself, how would I explain this to someone that doesn't play 40K? Because you have to start off with, me and another adult were playing with our toys, and here's why I'm mad. Like, just take a break. Speaking of that, with immersion on it and really loving it, what are your thoughts on the making sure that tournaments have appropriate terrain? Like, not even just good terrain, but also, what are your thoughts on well-painted terrain? Like, where's the line of getting beautiful terrain versus no? God damn it.
You there?
Yes.
Okay. I hear him.
I feel like I'm here. Am I still here?
There. Okay, we got you back.
I feel so here.
Brett, I heard you the whole time, if that helps.
I'm like,
I mean, you're short and low to the ground, but I heard you all the time, buddy. Don't worry.
hurtful.
See, Brad's gonna like parent me at Adepticon and crush me and be like, "Take that."
I'm not, but by the way, I do want you to know that I got sent because I'm not playing in the singles. I'm playing in the Long Wars doubles and the team tournament. And I get a message from Brandon of a screenshot of the player base, and he goes, "Are you actually playing in the singles?" Didn't want to tell anybody because one of the names is Stanky Girl for others. He's like, "Come on, is that you? Own up."
Hey, leave your TikTok handle out of this, okay?
I got to make some money for my OnlyFans, bro. Come on.
Actually, I mean, in terms of like the boys as being one of the most fun events, you can go like genuinely, everyone's there to have a good time. I mean, the Age of Sigmar guys are going to be cheering for you 40K guys. That was always a blast. But the Long War doubles, if I could maybe kind of throw some, credit where credit's due. One, Kenny Boucher, love you. I watched your YouTube videos religiously. I think it's probably helped me become a great painter. Also, YouTube in general is amazing. So check out Kenny Boucher, the Next Level Painting, like 4 or 5 years ago.
Can't go wrong with the Kenny voice too.
Can't go wrong. But like that's when he was like old school and kind of really kind of brought home what you can do with just the airbrush, or even just if you don't have an airbrush, what you can do to kind of get some really great effects. Now Next Level Painting, part of the Long War doubles. Every year at Adepticon I play it. Every year I keep having more fun. Last year we tied for best overall, but lost on the tiebreaker, which is battle points, which is fine because we were so hammered. We didn't care because we also won best painted. But that event is genuinely like you, another guy hanging out with.
Let's talk about how hammered you were, Matt. Just the wizard staff. That was, if you don't know what wizard staff is, you're taking beer cans, taping them together, and making a staff out of it. When it wraps around and comes back down to the floor after being 6 foot, 7 foot tall, that's a good time.
There's nothing wrong with this.
All right. Let's backtrack a little bit. Let's set up the scene a little bit more because you're making me be alcoholic, which may or may not be true in the military. So anyway, long story short, Adepticon happens like beforehand, and I win best paint. I'm just ecstatic. Did not expect to win it. I was there. I want to do well, but not expect to win it. So I'm on cloud 9. So the next day for Long War doubles, that's the event we really want to be on. For those who don't know, it's basically you have a 1,000-point list, your buddy has a 1,000-point list, supposed to be thematic, and you play together, and you try to have a lot of like sportsmanship, hobby. It really is super hobby. Like I think only battle points is like 20% of your score. The other 80% is painting, sportsman, and composition. So you really want to have a lot of fun. And drinking. So we played the year beforehand, and we did something called Wizard Staff, where you drink a beer, you finish it, you tape another one. You finish that beer. So before you start realizing it's going to get much bigger and bigger. So we decided we went really heavy the year beforehand. Let's take it easy. However, we play Harlequins, the meta Harlequins turn 1. I'm like, you realize what the Long War is? Like, this is supposed to be like a casual tournament. Like, we're not supposed to go heavy hitters. Like, yeah, but we don't know the army that well. So that's like your a disadvantage to us. And so we're like, man, we're going to lose it now. And I think I got third the year beforehand. So I was like, oh man. So we start drinking, we lean into it. And then my buddies, but they don't know the army so well. They start taking a long time. Harlequin's a lot of nuanced it. We're like, wait, we're about to get tabled, but they only left 5 minutes for turn 3. If we do this and this and the game ends, we win by a point. Well, I'm so like in the bag at this point. It's like 11 o'clock in the morning. I'm like, oh wait, yeah, you're right. So then we win. So then we just lean into it the rest of the day. We had so much fun, but it's Death Guard, right? So our beer start, again, this is the course of the whole day, by the way. So drinking, having fun. We get our opponents to start playing the game with us. And then we have other teams along where they're also playing the game. Well, it's Death Guard. So then we hit a point where it's starting to go over our heads. Well, then we make it into a scythe. So we're holding a scythe, moving models, rolling dice, and just had an absolute blast. And we tied for first. And so we'll never remember that because we're just having so much fun. But it genuinely is like that type of event. If you just want to go there and have a good time and bring like fluffy lists with like a billion Gretchen, or if you want to bring like all like, old school, Space Marine, that's the event for you. Because no matter who you play against, you're generally there to have fun. And so I cannot recommend that event enough. I try to like recruit people to go because it's so much fun. So I'll see you there, Brad.
If you recall last time, I played the first game, moved our display board in a U-Haul, came back and tried to play the third game with Kramer. But by that time, he was too drunk to let me play anymore. And then I changed sides.
I will say that between that and the 4-man teams, which are, as Brad has said, teams is one of the best formats for 40K ever. If you get a chance at Adepticon to play against the Tiki Gods, you will not be sober at the end of the round. Jared and his crew, you will not be able to walk.
It's not even possible.
The trick is, whatever you do, and maybe this is my adult voice talking, stick with it. If you're going dark liquor, stick with it. If you're going clear liquid, stick with it. If you're going beer, stay beer. Don't cross the streams, and you should be fine. Or else you'd be like me Sunday, waking up with 2 medals, wondering what happened the past 12 hours.
Yeah, it is true. Eloise played for 2 turns as for Kramer. Kramer had 5 different people at Long Wars Double, by the way. It was me, Nanavati, Eloise. Who the hell else played with him? I can't remember. We just kept swapping people out. Then I just showed up at the end. I think DeFrank showed up. I'm excited to play that tournament. I'm very excited for Adepticon weekend. I love teams of all sorts, and I'm super pumped to play in the teams. It is the way. Like, beer before liquor, never sicker. Liquor before beer, have no fear.
So we'll see if you start with liquor and stay with liquor the entire day, I don't see the problem.
I want to give a shout out to my teammates. Chris Dusbiak has been the wisest wizard the past 2 or 3 years. So I got to give credit where credit's due. That man is just a tank and a phenomenal Death Guard player. So I bring the pity arm, and he's a great general. So we're able to kind of make it work with less. And then Josh showed up at LVO to save my butt. He actually did really well too. I think we won best general there, and I think we tied again for first, but lost on tiebreakers again. So that's my other white whale.
Didn't we do really well at MCM, the 2 of us?
Yeah, we got best painted, but then got 2nd place overall. So they gave us that one because it was better prize support. Yep. So again, I'll paint stuff, Brad. If you pilot this Mad Max style, like we'll be fine.
Oh, who rules Bartertown? Master Blaster. I'll get on the back.
No, wait a second. So that's it. So at Du Bois this year, Brad, you're playing in doubles. Matt, you're painting the army.
Let's do this.
Now, I've said it a few times too. I'm trying to retire the Death Guard. I've done a whole so. For those of you who know like competitive painting, you get like Golden Demon. It will be at Adepticon. You get 1 model. You can use that for like 1 year. Then you got to retire it. So my Death Guard, I ran for 1 year, killed it. Now trying to retire it. Problem is I get my demons done in time, so I'm gonna do half Death Guard and half Nurgle Demons, so kind of a little bit of a compromise until I can get the army up and running. But hopefully have either Emperor's Children or maybe even Dark Mech if they actually put rules to them. We'll see if 10th edition what it holds. But yeah, Brad, we can do this. But wait, you only give the long war. Wait, the double tournament's only like it's winner take all though, right? It's like best general or nothing. I think.
No, not this year at the boys. There's gonna be some changes to the prize support there.
Mm-hmm.
Like it,
because I have been inspired by all of our conversations between Brad and I and on the cast, and then a few select people have reached out to me, and some of the paint companies have been really generous about trying to build the hobby side of things more. So we're going to be focusing on that.
Very cool. Actually, it makes me think of a question before I do that. Brad, how often are you approached at an event and asked for advice? That's a little bit off topic, but like how, because you're an amazing player, like obviously, you're well known. How often are you like hit up for like suggestions or advice? Probably pretty often, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm thinking
at least every tournament, at least somebody.
Yeah, so I think same thing for hobby, or if people will hit you up all the time. So I have to say, when I first approached you, and I was like, man, this guy like knows his shit. He's been around since the dinosaurs. Like, this guy knows everything. Team America, amazing. I'm just a little painter, and you were like the nicest dude to chat with. We're talking, and you're kind of like, why don't you bring more competitive stuff? Like, you're almost like mad for me. I was like, well, it's not the pretty paint stuff. And you're like, I get it, but I also don't get it. But you do you, man, So, but you were super approachable and nice. And I think
that would have been a Thursday night at Du Bois.
That's my way of just saying that, like, you're approachable, just like I'm approachable. And I think for the hobby side too, that everyone's been so approachable because they can see your art and they're like, wow, that's cool. How'd you do that? And you tell them why, and they're like, that's a lot of time and effort. I'm like, yeah, but this is how I started, and this is where I developed to. I'm like, okay, but that I can do. So it's just kind of cross-pollinating, and getting ideas. So watch YouTube, ask questions, hit people up. They are more than welcome and willing to tell you about their army and how you got to that point. So definitely hit people up, because it's all about this community, and how we support each other. I think the hobby community is strong and going on all cylinders to keep up with the meta, but also because I think that's what keeps people coming back in a lot of ways, because you're going to win games, lose games, but your army you could keep forever. And the amount of love you put into it, the other people are going to pick up on that and jive with it. Just the way that you're driving with it too. So again, just to kind of give a plug to you about being approachable, and also it's kind of saying, just as a community, we tend to be really open. So if you see me, feel free to say hi, or we'll probably share a drink at some point. And we'll also kind of give feedback, because whenever I give feedback, I'm not like, okay, let's compare you to Golden Demon. No, it's more of like, what's your army? What do you want to do with it? How do I help you take that next step? And I think talking with you, Brad, and also Brian, like whenever I ask for tips about like general play and things like that, you say, okay, how do you play? Let's play with your style as opposed to playing with a different style too. So I think it is really important to kind of check in with that person and see how do they, like, are them on their journey, whatever it might be, am I getting the next step in their respective journey as opposed to the way I would play, or something like that. So anyway, just want to kind of close with that.
Said so. I'm perfect. You know what? I have nothing else. That's how well you said it. I have no more words, because I think you did it perfect.
Thanks for having me on. Appreciate it.
Appreciate you coming, brother.
Appreciate you, Matt. We'll see you soon.
Give the Queen's wave.